Chapter 21. Dissolution. Dane was gone. I counted each day like a prisoner marking stone. Scratched lines in my journal that grew increasingly erratic as my hand shook harder with each passing morning. Day 1, Day 2, Day 3. My instructors worked me harder than usual, demanding I cast binding after binding in every class. Enhancement networks, defensive barriers, amplification matrices.
Again.
Master Theron said after I completed a flawless defensive weave. It was perfect, I said, my voice flat with exhaustion.
Again.
I cast it again. And again. And again. Until my channels burned and the ink accumulated faster than my body could process it. They were accelerating my dissolution, making me cast far more than necessary, building the toxicity deliberately. I understood what they were doing, but I had no choice except to comply or fail out completely. The ink accumulated with toxic inevitability. I could feel it building in my channels. Black lightning spreading through my veins like poison. The sensation was acid and electricity combined. Burning and freezing simultaneously. Other cleavers would not transfer with me beyond the most cursory hand clasp.
Sorry, Harrow. Too busy. Maybe later. I have drills. Ask someone else.
The excuses were transparent. Seraphina's influence ensuring I remained poisoned and desperate. The black marks spread relentlessly. Across my collarbone first. Dark tracings that looked like bruises but felt like fire. Then up my neck. Climbing toward my jaw in delicate patterns that resembled lace. I caught my reflection in the window during tactical theory. Barely recognized myself. My skin had taken on a translucent quality, like I was becoming less solid, less real. The ink marks stood out in sharp contrast. Black against pale flesh that was starting to look almost ethereal. My emotions fragmented further each day. I laughed during a lecture on corruption zones. The instructor had been describing casualties. Horrible deaths. And I could not stop laughing. High and bright and utterly inappropriate. The other students stared, whispered, moved their seats away from me. Later, I wept in the dining hall because someone smiled at me. Just a simple courtesy from a passing student who did not know my situation. And I dissolved into tears so violent I had to flee before anyone could ask questions. I experienced every feeling simultaneously until I could not distinguish one from another. Joy and grief and rage and despair all braided together into something incomprehensible. Something that was not quite human anymore. I attended classes mechanically. Moved through the academy like a ghost haunting its own life. Wait for Dane to return. That was all I had left. He would come back. He would transfer with me. He would stabilize me like he had before. Just hold on. Just survive until he returned. Day 4. Day 5. Day 6. The ink whispered through my veins now. I could hear it. A sound like static. Like distant screaming. Like reality fragmenting at frequencies humans were not meant to perceive. My form flickered at the edges sometimes. Like I was not quite occupying the same space I had been a moment before. Black oil dripped from my fingertips during morning drills. Just a few drops, evaporating before they hit the ground. But I saw the instructor notice. Saw her make notes on her tablet. Documentation. For when I finally dissolved completely. Day 7. Day 8. Objects in my room started moving on their own. Not dramatically. Just small shifts. A book sliding 3 inches to the left. A pen rolling off my desk. My water glass rotating slowly in place. Gravitational distortion from uncontrolled magic. I was warping reality just by existing in it. Day 9, Day 10, Day 11. The black marks reached my jaw. Traced along the bone in patterns that would have been beautiful if they were not evidence of dissolution. I stopped looking in mirrors. Could not stand seeing what I was becoming. The Academy's library became my sanctuary. A vast space of towering shelves and forgotten corners where I could exist without audience or judgment. I spent hours here, ostensibly studying, actually hiding from a world that had made its verdict clear. The other students gave me wide berth now. Even the sympathetic looks had stopped. Pity required energy people would not spend on someone Seraphina Coldwell had designated as non-person. I sat at a corner table near the ancient text section, surrounded by books on binding theory I had already mastered, pretending to focus while my mind circled the same thoughts endlessly. Dane, the deployment. The crushing loneliness of dissolution without transfer. My emotions swung unpredictably. Rage at the injustice bleeding into despair at my helplessness. Brief flashes of manic energy crashing into exhausted numbness. I laughed at nothing, wept at shadows, felt everything and nothing simultaneously. The black marks spread further daily. Visible now even through my uniform's high collar. I caught other students staring, saw them whisper behind hands, watched them calculate whether associating with me was worth the risk. The answer was always no. I turned a page in the binding theory text. The words blurred together. Meaningless symbols on parchment. Footsteps approached my table. I did not look up. Whoever it was would either deliver another petty cruelty or pass by in studied ignorance. Either way, acknowledging them gave them power I could not afford to surrender. A chair scraped across stone. Someone sat across from me. I looked up slowly, ready to endure whatever came next. Cale Morvan studied me with uncomfortable precision. He was striking in a way that demanded attention. Dark hair, sharp features, eyes that assessed with clinical interest rather than judgment. I recognized him vaguely from the Inter-Academy exchange program. One of the visiting cleavers whose presence had generated its own social ripples. He studied me for a long moment. His gaze cataloging the black marks on my neck, the dark circles under my eyes, the brittle tension in my shoulders. When he finally spoke, his voice carried none of the false sympathy I had learned to dread.
You're the one Coldwell's targeting.
Not a question. An observation delivered with the clinical interest of someone examining an interesting specimen. I stared at him. Too exhausted for subterfuge or social niceties. Is this where you warn me to stay away from Dane? The words came out sharper than intended. Edged with defensive hostility I could not quite suppress. Cale's laugh was genuine, surprising in its warmth. He absently cleaned dirt from under his nails. Casual, unconcerned with the social performance everyone else seemed to require.
No, this is where I tell you, Seraphina Coldwell is a predictable bully who mistakes cruelty for strength. And you're more interesting than she'll ever be.
I blinked. uncertain how to process words that sounded like compliment, but felt like assessment. He leaned back, put his boots up on the table, right on top of one of the ancient binding theory texts, radiating casual confidence that felt simultaneously attractive and dangerous. He continued focusing on a speck of dirt under his nail, like getting it out mattered more than any social convention about defacing library books or respecting personal space.
My academy has a different politics.
He said, his tone conversational, like we were discussing weather instead of my systematic destruction.
Different opportunities. Merit matters more than bloodline there.
He paused, let the implication hang between us.
If things fall apart here,
He met my eyes.
when things fall apart here, you could transfer. Join my rotation.
The offer landed like a physical thing. Heavy. Unexpected.
I'm not promising romance or rescue.
Kale continued, his honesty almost brutal in its directness.
Just partnership based on capability rather than pedigree. You're skilled. Your binding networks are exceptional. That matters more than who your parents were or which legacy family claims you.
I opened my mouth, closed it, could not find words adequate to the moment.
Think about it,
He said, standing to leave.
but don't wait too long. Vipers like Coldwell don't stop until they draw blood.
He paused at the table's edge, his expression softening fractionally.
You're drowning here. There are other waters, Liv. Cleaner ones.
The use of my first name startled me. Intimate without being invasive. Like he had already decided we were equals worth knowing. Why? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Kale laughed again, even more genuine than before.
Power. You have it. I want it.
The bluntness was refreshing after weeks of social manipulation and hidden motives. He wanted power. I had power. Therefore, he wanted me. Simple, honest, transactional in a way that felt safer than pretense of altruism. His eyes held mine for a moment longer than comfortable. Something flickering in their depths that looked like knowledge, like secrets.
You're special in ways Ashforge doesn't even know yet.
His voice dropped. Quiet, almost intimate.
In ways this academy can't recognize because they're not looking for it.
He finally dislodged the speck of dirt from under his nail, flicked it away with satisfaction.
That's what makes you valuable.
The words hung between us, heavy with implication I could not quite grasp. What did he know? What had he seen that others missed? But before I could ask, he was already moving on. Then he was gone, leaving me staring at the space he occupied, his offer hanging in the air like smoke. I sat frozen for several minutes, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. Someone had looked at me, seen the black marks, the dissolution, the social exile, and still offered partnership, not out of pity, not out of manipulation, but because he believed I was valuable enough to be worth the risk. I did not trust it, could not trust it, not after having every kindness revealed as manipulation. But it was also the first genuine lifeline anyone had extended since I could remember. The first acknowledgement that I might deserve better than this institutional abandonment. I looked down at my hands, at the black marks spreading across my fingers like dark lace. Kale's Academy. Different politics. Merit over bloodline. A place where I might be judged on capability instead of crushed for threatening the wrong legacy daughter's claim to the wrong cleaver. I filed the offer away mentally. Not committing, but not dismissing either. I was not running. Not yet. But knowing there was a door I could walk through if everything collapsed made the suffocation slightly more bearable. Outside the library windows, afternoon faded to evening. The light shifted from gold to amber to deep purple. Somewhere in this academy, Dane was deployed to the boundary wall, fighting classified threats, thinking about whatever cleavers thought about when they faced monsters alone. Did he think about me? Or had the separation already begun, the inevitable erosion that distance always brought? I touched my lips, remembering winter and starlight, the taste of hope that felt increasingly like delusion. Kale's words echoed through my fragmented thoughts.
You're drowning here. There are other waters.
Maybe he was right. Maybe I was drowning. Maybe I had been drowning since my outburst, since my father's caravan, since the moment I manifested magic and became something other than the merchant's daughter who calculated routes and managed supplies. But something dangerous kindled in my chest. Hope. Or perhaps just the last desperate ember of someone not quite ready to surrender. I stood, gathered my books, made my way back to my quarters through corridors that felt less hostile, with Kale's offer burning in my pocket like a talisman. Not commitment, not decision, just possibility. A door I could walk through if I chose to. And sometimes knowing you had choices was enough to survive another day. I reached my room, locked the door behind me, sank onto my bed with exhaustion that went deeper than flesh. Day 11 without Dane. The ink whispered through my channels, building, accumulating, pushing me closer to dissolution with each passing hour. But I was still here, still coherent, still myself. And now I knew there were other waters if I needed them. Cleaner ones. Where vipers like Seraphina held less power. Where capability mattered more than bloodline. I pulled out my journal. The pages showed increasingly erratic handwriting. Evidence of deterioration I could not stop. I turned to a fresh page. Wrote carefully. Day 11. Kale Morvan offered me transfer to his academy. Different politics. Merit over bloodline. Partnership based on capability. He wants my power. Says it honestly. No pretense. No manipulation. Just transaction. I have not decided. But knowing I have options makes breathing easier. Dane is still deployed, still gone, still leaving me to drown alone while Seraphina orchestrates my destruction. Maybe Kale is right. Maybe there are cleaner waters. I closed the journal, set it on my desk that was slowly beginning to rotate again. Objects responding to the gravitational distortion of uncontrolled magic. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new attacks, new evidence that I did not belong here. But tonight, I had options. And that was something. I lay back on my bed, stared at the ceiling that seemed to ripple slightly at the edges of my vision. Hallucination or reality? I could not tell anymore. But Kale's offer felt real. Solid. Something I could hold on to when everything else was fragmenting.
There are other waters, Liv. Cleaner ones.
I closed my eyes, let exhaustion pull me towards sleep, and dreamed of drowning in crystal clear water that did not burn, did not poison, did not whisper dissolution through channels meant for magic and life. Clean water, where I could breathe again. Maybe.